Welcome to the Ultimate Survival System. And today we are looking at survival skills number 3, protection, self-defense. And the motto that we carry with is this sessions or this series is preparation is the key. We started looking at the book Alive After the Fall, one of the 19 books in this series. And we have also divided this series in different sections. We called it survival skill. And the first survival skills that we're presenting is having to do with preparation is the key and wise advices in the case of shelter, water, food. And we have one more to present today out of this book, Alive After the Fall. And it's actually having to do with first aid. As we look at the book, we encourage you to read all of the 89 pages, which is all these booklets are available on the website. And here it's a very important program again to follow. And we encourage you also not only to read this material, but take notes as you read, because it is suggested in here that you should start having some kind of a kit that you prepare or medical supplies on hand. And again, as we mentioned before, it's not only having to do with an EMP attack or having to do with a snowstorm and an ice storms, but it could be all kind of things that can happen that you never could predict. And it's good to be ready. Better being prepared than sorry. So in the afterward of an attack or any kind of a situation crisis, having enough medical supplies is going to be essential. While you are preparing your house, gather supplies for your pharmacy during every visit or grab medical supplies when you do your grocery shopping. And here we're not necessarily thinking about medication. There are people who have to be on medication. That's what they need in their treatments, but some of us are using natural remedies as well. But even so, you will need some supplies. And it is wise to start using some supplies to get to know them, but also to purchase them so you can have them at hand if ever you need them and they are not available. And it is suggested that if you have not received any training in first aid, you should take a class with the Red Cross. Also, the YMCA offers some classes or some private businesses in your community. We have also understood a long time ago, many of us, that tutorials are very good as well on video. It may not allow you to do it firsthand, but it does give a lot of suggestion of what you could do and testimonies of people by having watched those tutorials. They have learned a lot of what to do in case of a problem, such as CPR, first aid, or disease management. You will also learn how to identify and treat 3 of the most common killers of an emergency, which is obstructed airways, excessive blood loss, and shock. And this can happen in case of course, difficulties, a hard time, or a crisis. Alternative medicines such as medicinal seeds and healing herbs can take care of certain medical conditions, which should the need arise. And having books on hand in case you are not sure of what to do is very essential. And also alternative medicines, which we choose to call actually the real medicine since we use natural remedy. But here it's mentioning a few such as garlic tea, cinnamon, eucalyptus, iodine, meat tenderizer, cayenne pepper, and you take some and you leave some of what you think you could use, cranberry juice, cloves, and these are only a few items. Of course, we have also mentioned the herbs in that book, and we will mention many more in the next sessions having to do with food and also using herbs. So there are plenty of books that provide in-depth information on the best plants and herbs to use and what they can treat, but it is not in time of emergency that you're going to be able to look at a book and figure out what you ought to do. The best is to instruct yourself, start learning, being very, very knowledgeable before the time comes so you will not have to search in a book if you need anything. Also, there are some suggestions here of A sample in a pot refrigerator can be improvised by using a smaller clay pot within a large clay pot. Add sand and water in between the small and a large pot. This is in case of for storage. It's like a refrigerator, but it's more like a storage made with clay pot. And to cover the top of the small pot with a rag, so the inside of the smaller pot will become cool, allowing it to store heat-sensitive medicines. So if people have to have medicines that they need from the pharmacy or the doctor, so there is no electricity, you may have to keep some of those well kept. So this is a suggestion, the pot in a pot refrigerator. Now, before you find yourself in a post-EMP world, learn how to store antibiotics. Again, some people need all kind of antibiotic because they are on medical care. And so this is what you need to preserve, and you need to know how to preserve them so they can last. And now, if you don't have the way to do it, these explanations are very reliable, and you can hopefully also use them in case of emergency. Now, we're not going to go over those medication. You want to read it for yourself if it's one of your concern. Some of us, we do not use any of those medications, so we will bypass for the moment. But remember, you are responsible to read these things and prepare yourself the best you can. These are guidelines, and these are called life skills because of that. So the one thing that we will attract your attention though, which is very, very important, is a first aid kit. In case of a disaster of any kind, even if it's a natural incident, you will want to be healthy. You do not want to be sick. And if anything happens, you want to have an emergency kit that you can use right away in order to help people or help yourself. Hopefully you will not need to, but just in case, again, being prepared is always the best approach. So here is the kit that is mentioned here. Of course, you can buy it all done already, all prepared, but these can be easily bought, and you can create a bag for it, and then you can keep it at hand with your emergency tool. When you're ready to leave, you will have it at hand. So a well-stocked first aid kit can help you respond immediately to common emergencies or injuries. You should consider having one or even more supply kits. Keep at least one first aid kit in your home and one in your car or office. And you have to store them so they're easy to retrieve in case you need them right away. So this, you do not want that to be not prepared. The last thing you want to be doing during a medical emergency is familiarizing yourself with your first aid kit. So this is not the time. You should know what you have in there and know what you want to use it. Again, it's called Survival First Aid Kit. It may not have everything you would need. This is not an hospital, but it's a kit that could help you or help someone else, even if it needs to be for a short while. So if you cannot find a pre-packed kit made specifically for long-term survival, you will want to put one together as we're suggesting here. And these are not intended for long-term treatment. When you use first aid, usually if it's a non-serious injury, you can easily take care of it. But if you have one injury that is really needing a lot of care, and then you may have to think about, organizing yourself for larger ointment, for example, quantity of ointment and bandage and things like this. When dealing with possible injuries, you want to have first aid training as well as having first aid manuals on hand. And here we're going to bypass this again. And this is the supply that they're suggesting, which makes a lot of sense. So they suggest that you should have adhesive bandage, cloth tape in different sizes, roller bandage, triangular bandage, cotton swabs and pads, gauze, latex or synthetic gloves, very important when you treat people. You do not want to pass on, even though you may wash your hand. And these should not be necessarily just your regular gloves. They should be also to protect against germs. And then you want antibiotic ointment packets, antiseptic solution and wipe packets, saline solution, soap and sanitizer, thermometer, adhesive tape, duct tape. There are many suggestions here, plastic bags, and scissors, tweezers, safety pins, first aid manual. And of course, it's important to have everything ready if you have insurance. End crank flashlight and radio. There was also, you can search it for yourself. You might do well to spend an hour or two on the internet one day if you have access and search those videos that shows you how to start a fire with a battery and some aluminum foil. It's very, very interesting. I have looked at those programs, those you would call it again self-thought, but you look at it and you learn and you pick up some ideas. It's very, very important. If you have just a little battery from a flashlight, you can use that battery actually and connecting it with a piece of aluminum, and the way it creates some energy, it will start, the aluminum will do a spark, and you could start a wood fire with that. And they're showing all kind of ideas on how to do a simple fire with can of little tin of pop drinks. If you have a few can at hand, you can actually create a fire with that. It's very interesting how they make it, they suggest it. And those are called tutoring YouTubes. So candles and matches are very important, preferably the long lasting candles. And the matches, of course, you want to keep them out of the humidity so that they will work when you need them. Space blanket, emergency space blanket, sunscreen, multi-purpose knife tool, dust mask, needle and thread in case you need to sew skin, and area maps, sleeping bags, of course, for people who use chemical, aspirin, and pain relievers or medication, breathing barrier, activated charcoal, that should be the first on your list, aloe vera, alcohol, antihistamine for allergies, calamine lotion, personal medication. Again, take some, leave some. If you have other approach to it, we respect that. In any case, if your medicine supply runs out, you might have to improvise and rely on what nature has to offer or what other resources you have at your hand. But this is just a basic starter, but it would be well if you could start even a kit of any kind. So the ginger can be used not only as medicine, as many people know, but as a spice. So it can be used for when you cook, but also when you have stomach problem, nausea, pain relief, muscle soreness, many respiratory infection that can lead to cough and bronchitis, which can happen if you're in the forest or in difficult condition in a home and there is no electricity and it's cold. You might end up having to take care of yourself with those natural basic remedies. Cinnamon will help to reduce the blood sugar level, and so it's very popular with diabetes, people who suffer from diabetes, and that helps to control their blood sugar. Also, it can be found that it's an effective natural remedy for eliminating headaches or migraine relief. Peppermint also, which can be, you can find it in nature, of course, and these are all ancient medicine which existed even before medication, and peppermint in particular can be used for common cold, cough, inflammation of the throat, sinus infection, respiratory infection. Very useful also for digestive problems. So as you can see, it's not just one system of the body that you can use those natural remedy. Cayenne pepper, this is very, very good, not only for food, but for heartburn, tremors, fever, sore throat, anti-cold, flu agent, and also it can prevent the formation of fungal pathogens. A lot of quality for cayenne pepper to be around. And of course, it's a pain reliever, and you can actually just rub the area affected, and it will definitely help to remove some pains. Chicory root also is very, very good for liver problems and digestive problems such as constipation, and it is a very good source of antioxidants. Basil, this is not just a beautiful herbs to put in the food, but it's also antibacterial agent, and it can be used as a bug repellent. So if you have a lot of bugs in the area, make sure that you bring some basil, specifically the one that is fresh. Iodine tincture is not only good for cleansing the water, but it's also an antiseptic and wonderful to clean wound, and also it's an antioxidant as well. Baking soda, which can be used to treat insect bites, itchy skin, You just make a paste with the soda and the water and you apply it directly on the skin. And it's also good for care products such as toothpaste, deodorant, and it's known for neutralizing odors. So there again, you may want to take a class in case you have to take some performing CPR or different, especially if you have people that are in a situation where they are in distress with a heart attack, choking, allergic reaction, medical emergencies. All of these that could happen. And what will you do if you're not ready? And when you need it, it's no time now to go and have the training. So the CPR, this will be very important to take for people who have never taken it. And so we encourage you to look into this book and see what other things you can do to get better prepared. You may never need to use it, but at least you will have an idea of helping people. You can save lives. And again, here the CPR in the airway, there are other means that you learn from the CPR if you want to help people breathing, and all kind of suggestion on how to practice these methods. And then they have contraindications, so you need to follow through very carefully with this and know what you're talking about because you don't want to do worse as well. But it's amazing if somebody is there around to save a life because they have learned those techniques compared to people who would not know what to do. Also, they mention about what do you do in case of choking. That could happen, especially with old people or young children. So you don't want to have people on your hand that are in an emergency case and you're into a crisis. There's a big storm out there or things like this and you don't know what to do. So this is what we're encouraging you to do with this book. Take time to read it. Take time to be aware of what's happening. And if there is an emergency, you will feel confident you can help. So again, they'll tell you what to do is people are having a hard time breathing and what to do to in case like also if they're choking. So there are definitely things that can be done in order to save lives. And these are sample picture of what you can do in helping people who are, in this case, from what I have read there, I believe it's a person who is basically choking. So that can help to bring them back to life because choking is very dangerous. Other basic necessities. So, of course, we do not know until we are in the situation, but do not forget your toiletry. This is also important. Toiletry meaning like toothpaste and toothbrush and things that you're going to need in order to upkeep. And it's better to have your own, and it's better to have it prepared in advance so that they're into an emergency kit in a kind of a little bag, even if it is a family, one bag per members, and you will be organized. In the case here, they're talking about to be clean, to be healthy, sanitizing your entire house. That's when you will avoid sicknesses like dysentery, tetanus, cholera, typhus, very, very dangerous in case of emergency to have these disease among us. So we need to be knowledgeable and know what to do. And when you don't just run to the drugstore or being able to buy some medication, it'll be a pretty bad step if you are not prepared. And here is a picture. It's a little bit overdone, maybe too much kit for some people. I'm going to enlarge it. It's a bit small, but here you go. And this is showing a little bit maybe too much, but it's still a good idea to take some suggestion of what you could do. These particular kit, you can have them actually find them in places like where you buy them at a not a very high cost, and they're still good. Like all of these Band-Aid, for example. I see here what I would recommend that is missing is those elastic Band-Aids in case, and buy more than one set. They're long and they can be cut if it's a shorter need, but they can also be used for broken legs or even if you have a broken rib and you need to do wrapping for something, then you will need those elastic band. But they have pretty well everything here that you could need with Band-Aids and some cream and things to do with, even Tide to wash your clothes. So the checklist that they give you here: cleanser, antiperspirant, razors, tissue, toothpaste, toothbrush, mouthwash, soap, disinfectant. Here is the list. So every time you go to the store, it's less expensive to buy as you go along than buying it all at once. So there you can be organized. Disinfectant, children, baby care items, needle and thread, simple tools. But if you prepare this bag and this is ready in case of emergency, and these things do not require any electricity, you can use them as such. Well, it's wonderful. And again, tools. They're telling you about tools that you can get here. And basic tools such as having a hammer, a screwdriver, both flathead and Phillips head, wrenches, pliers, vice grips, tape measure, saw, and a level, utility knife. And so again, you can start having this kit put together. It doesn't have to be a big toolbox, but if you have it handy, when you need it, it's nice to have it prepared. That's the idea. If we're prepared, we will not worry. So I will not go through all of the rest of the book. There is about maybe another 15, 20 pages. Again, we're coming back here with the clothing, and they suggest that that should be prepared as well, just like the first aid. Have that ready. And in case you were to have to go fast, and you never know, it doesn't have to be an attack. It can simply be a storm or a tornado in your house. You don't have any home anymore. So if you have to run to an emergency place, you may want to have clothing that is ready. And if you don't have any central heat or air in your home because of that storm, if it gets hotter or cooler, you're going to need to know what to do, which clothes to get. And sleeping bag, blanket, that's very important. And with our harsh winter, having extra blankets, sleeping bag, this is very important for your survival because that could be the only thing that'll keep you warm. And especially with clothing and how to dress in case like this. And for children, babies, elderlies, these people, they're even more fragile, so they need proper clothing. So all of these things are recommended, and it's not the luxuries. It's definitely something you will need, maybe not, but maybe yes. So it's called bug out bag, just in case. And you prepare this with the emergency part, and then again a bag where you can have your necessity, and that will keep also from humidity and from getting wet. So get something, make sure your bag is not going to get all wet and all what you have in it is wasted. And also they even suggest having to do for children, teenagers, everybody can have their little pack, their bag pack, and they're ready to go. So this is very important. And the same here with survival food. That also is important. If you can have some survival food, easy to travel and bring it with you, then at least you will not be starving and be able to preserve this food. So these are suggestions, and we recommend you read the book. Otherwise, we will spend the whole time on this book again. But the two idea was having to do with emergency and having to do with some supplies, whether it's having to do with clothing or having to do with sanitization. So it's very important. So this is one of the survival skill from Alive After the Fall that we wanted to present. And now, according to our list, we will look at it now, and we will tell you where we're going to go with this section. Is we want to look at the survival skills number 2, and that will comprehend ABC, surviving martial law, survival guide to handcraft weapons, and self-defense for women. And in it, we could probably include the last resource home defense if we want to have a look at it. But nevertheless, we have definitely a lot to look at here, and it's very important to be ready. And then we will go with the next section. If we don't have time to do the home defense, we will look right now at the part 2A, B, and C. And then we will continue in the next series, in the next section. We're going to continue with all of the other survival that we have divided and suggested. So we look now at the Alive After the Fall. So now we would like to have a quick look at the martial law manual. And you may not think that there are information for you in there because we don't have martial law right now. Well, even reading the book, it's not a big book. And it gives some pretty good information, which will probably help you to manage if ever you are a case of emergency in your country and all of a sudden the martial law is declared. For some people, it could be very stressful. They wouldn't know what to do. And this book is giving some very, very important information as to what is a martial law, what to do in the case of a martial law. So we will go over the table of contents, which gives you a very, very good idea of what you're expecting from that book. It's not a big book, very short, but very important. What is martial law? The history of martial law in the United States, HR 645 and the FEMA concentration camps, the rule of martial laws, your rights during martial law survival strategies, comprehension questions, and comprehension question with answers. As you can see, it's one of the shortest table of contents of all the books, but very, very well put together as far as giving the basic of information that you would need. So we do recommend that you read it very carefully. Mainly, martial law is simply defined as the imposition of military rule. So whether it's a reversal of government, whether it's because of a storm, riot, protest, insurrection, rebellion, if it's a state of war, in the case of natural disasters, that could happen too. And this is very important to be prepared for that, which means that when the military force decide to take control over, or the government decide for the military to take control over the country, the laws that they put into place, the civil rights, they may become temporarily suspended, such as you may end up with a curfew because it's dangerous to go out at night. And it has nothing to do necessarily with theft and people who wants to kill you. Could be simply that the roads are not safe, and if the army decides, the military decide that people cannot go out after the dark, this has to be obeyed just like if it had been imposed by the government itself. So martial law usually intends to protect you in case of anarchy, and it's usually temporary takeover of the government by the military in a specific location. It's not necessarily all over the country, although it could be if it was a national disaster, but usually it's by province or by state, depending where it occurs. But sometimes it has been used as well to maintain power or enforce rule over the people, and that also has brought in some terrible situation, but mainly they are for the good and to serve the purpose of the people. And the people usually don't really like them, but if it is for safety, what can we do? So we do encourage to read that booklet, and this is strictly regarding martial law, and it also explains the rules and the rights that the rules that the martial law obtains, what they impose, but yet at the same time, what are your rights? What is the things you can still do under martial law? So this is a very, very important book to take time to look into, and we encourage you to do so. Now, we're going to go to the survival guide to handcrafted weapons. And some of you may not feel comfortable at all with this, and that's okay. But we have seen in the past months, especially in the United States, where there were some literal attacks of the citizenry. They went to attack their own people. They brought themselves into a kind of a riot frenzy, and they would attack the home of citizens. And most of these homes are so not protected. The doors are not safe, the lock are not safe, the windows are not safe. So this is where, when you come with even having some handmade weapons like this, handcrafted, maybe some people don't even feel comfortable with that, but don't neglect it. Take time to look at this booklet. Again, it's not very big, and it's a survival guide to handcrafted weapons. So you have a weapon here that you will definitely recognize. not only the bow and arrow, but this one here, where this is the weapons that David, or something similar, that David used to kill the giant Goliath from the Philistines, and not Philippines, Philistines. And this is actually a very, very simple weapons, but it can save a life. And this I do not quite comprehend if it's a real gun or what is it supposed to be. But definitely there are some help here that you can find in reading and looking at these materials. And as simple it can be, again, there are some survival film, or and what we call the YouTube. On the YouTube you can go and find some tutoring on this, and again it will give you different approach of how to use it. So they give you the safety guidelines, and they have different, these are different smoke bomb. That's a weapon. And so if you're interested into this, they tell you actually not only the name of it and what it is, they tell you how to make them, because those are do-it-yourself type of weapons. You don't have to buy them. So some people may say in case of attack, we shouldn't defend ourselves. Well, I don't think that this is what the Lord would want you to do. You don't have to fall at the mercy of people. And that's why when you look at even the possibility of changing your lock, your key, your lock on the door and your window to be protected with bars, maybe you think it's too exaggerated, or maybe you think it will never happen where you are. Well, everyone its own, I suppose. But better be prepared than sorry. Like they say, you can trust God, but don't trust the devil. So the next one, which I find very interesting, I've spent a number of hours to look at some tutoring on YouTube, and I've even preserved some. For those of you who are interested, I can send you a list of some. And these are actually self-defense for women. Don't be another statistic. And though it's prepared for women, it's applicable for adult male, and even not only teenagers either. So these are techniques that you can use to defend yourself. And if people say, well, better not try to defend yourself because then you will enrage the attacker, well, I think if you have a possibility to defend yourself, you should. These are not techniques of karate or things like this. It's not judo or anything like that, but it's very, very comprehensive technique, which if I would not have looked at them, I would have probably never learned that it is possible to do that, even if you're not strong, and still be able to get some result. And again, this is the table of contents explaining domestic violence, what is self-defense, how not to be a victim, tools for protection, and of course, people who have suffered a rape or attack like this, that can affect your mental health. And so you have to be careful what to do if somebody tried to steal your purse, what to do in case of a home invasion, especially if your home is not prepared for it. It's pretty scary. And then unmarked police car, street safety, workplace safety. So you should be an advocate of this at your work if your work is not very safe. We have seen that in the schools where children sometimes come and attack. They're not even adults, they're children that come and attack their peers and kill some. So if those schools would have been aware, I'm sure they would have prepared themselves in case of emergency like this, which makes it very unsafe for the children. So these, again, we're not saying that these are martial arts, but if you feel inclined that you want it, we're not here to tell you what to do. But it's an excellent book. And as we said, if you want to search on the internet again for some tutorial on how to learn these, and they're basically, once you have, I've watched about maybe 10, and they basically come back to the same. They're basically the same movement of self-defense. But it's still good to read them so you know what it's all about. So now we have seen the self-defense, and now we're going to look at what to do with the last resort home defense. And when we look at these programs, as I said, when you look at those programs or those movies, or even those news, on the news, what has happened, literally like this picture is showing, how many people were unprepared for this before the election this year, and houses have been looted, stores have been looted. You could see it on the news. People literally going into the store because the windows now were broken. They literally walking by the mass and stealing, because it's still stealing like running shoes and clothing. It was awful. Well, that has happened. It's not like, oh, it will never happen in my place. Well, I wouldn't take that chance. So this is a last resort home defense. So you have a beautiful home and somebody now is overexcited and is participating in those riots. But all of a sudden they're not happy to destroy the store in town. They want to find your house and come and destroy it. Well, is your house would stand the test? And so that book is very, very important to check yourself out. And they suggest that you strengthen your doors and your windows, and you need an effective home defense plan and prevention technique. So again, what is our motto is preparation is the key. So better be preventing than being sorry. Now, they're also talking about securing your door. Many doors of homes are basically wood, and they're very easy to kick. Even if they have two lock, they're very easy to push and break. And now, as they make metal doors and fire, because some of them have to be fire resistant, you would do well. Maybe they're maybe not as fancy, but they make nice metal doors now. And many windows, many people have been adding metal bars to windows for protection. And so it's interesting that was mentioned in some other session, but if you go in places where there is a lot of crimes, and I'm not going to name any place, I don't want to offend anybody, but say if you travel and you go to somewhere in the islands, or you take a holidays and you go to those places where the people have to protect their goods, they have to put some bars in the window and they have to put huge doors and many locks, and people are surprised because they're accustomed to not even lock their door where they live. Well, there might be a time where you will have to, and that door may not resist if some people come and try to get into your house and take everything you have and kill you. Look at countries like South Africa, they are suffering from that. So make sure that your house is secure, your window screens, the bars, the plates. Securing the garage also, don't leave your garage easy to open, because then they can easily enter the house. Fence security, and choosing your padlock and finding safety in a safe room. This is very important too. You should take time to read that, how to prepare one room as reinforcing it. And even if it's the only one room in the house, that will offer some safety, because you have padded it, you have put some metal wall, or you have some extension of a frame to it, you will see that this room may not be where you're going to go and hide if there was a bomb, but it's still a place where it becomes a good shelter right in your home. And here it says that where should I target, type of strikes, and pack-driven striking, impromptu weapons versus semi-impromptu. And these are all the information you will find in this booklet. And we will not read it for you at this moment because there's so much to cover. But that's why we're giving you the time and we're giving you the material so that you will not have to look for it. This is probably the best survival kits, we could say, with all their books and many direction. But it fits perfectly what we believe in. And that's why we need to have this connection with this book and use it. All right. So they say don't be an easy target, meaning like don't leave your door unlocked. Don't brag about it too. And lock all your doors, especially if you have to leave for the day. And make sure that your home is protected. And you are protected when you live there as well. That's very important. So now we have come to the last part. So we have seen how to fix a house to make it safe. And now we've come to this last part that we were looking at, having to do with the home. And so we hope that this has helped. There is also something that we have been looking at is Google Maps, with the hope that we can find a place in the country, something similar to this would be sufficient. And something that we were talking about too for the past few weeks now, having to do with containers. It is always easier to buy a property to be financed if you need financing with a kind of a house on it, even if it's just this looks like a model, a module type of a home, almost like a trailer home that has been fixed into a house, which is fine. And if it has already, you may not want electricity on it or gas, you can have them disconnected actually. But if you want to have water, and if it's not connected with the city, if it has its own well, if it has already a big septic tank and it's functioning well, those two are assets to buy a property, even if it's just a little house and the well is good and the septic tank are good, do not need to need repairs. You are already set up to be able to have a house. If it has trees as well, you need to look into this. And do not choose expensive home. We are not actually advised to establish ourselves among the rich. Maybe it's more fancy, maybe it looks better, but this is not for statute purposes. This is to be discreet. And if you decide in a fancy area to start putting those containers in the backyard, I don't see how the people will be very happy. But if you have an acreage, maybe 12 acres, 20 acres, and it's separated from the other neighbors, and it's wooded, it has a lot of wood, and things will not be suspicious as much if you start making your containers, and you don't want to have the neighbors in your backyard asking you what on earth you're doing. So these are all things to take into consideration that many people may never have thought about, and it's part of your last resort home defense as well. Be prepared, be ready. If you never need it, hey, good for you. But if you need it, it's already existing. And you could also be called to become a model for other people where they would not know what to do in a case like this. And if they see you preparing a container, you don't want to do, like we said, a big bunker there and everybody comes and you're going to have attention from everywhere. You can have one container, two containers, and then you become a kind of example for people so that they can come and see what on earth you're doing, and then or prepare a little video and don't even say where it is and put it on the internet with your survival programs like we're doing here, and then you can find some people can find access to it. So far, I have not seen anything like that. It's mainly living into it, making it fancy, making it look nice. It's nice to live in containers, but that's not the real purpose of this program here. And here is a map. This is not having to do with any of you who do not live around here, but this is a map that I've been looking at, and I know pretty well the real estate of this area. And again, for example, if I had to choose here between Richmond Hill, which is quite an expensive or more expensive area, and having to do, for example, if you go from the Highway 400 all the way to 404 and then pass by, so that would be compared to the north. This is your east side. There are some areas that are still very reasonable where you can buy a piece of property and nothing fancy on it, but at least there is a well already installed, because this is expensive, and there is its own water with the well, of course. And then don't go so much for lots of river and like recreation area and things like that. You don't want such a big traffic around what you want to do. It has to be more discreet. If there is water on the land, as far as having a well, and maybe there is a creek that passed through, but not a river or a lake where people are boating, you're already set. But the most important part is trees. There is a saying in real estate, sell me the trees and I'll buy the house. And that is what I believe. If you buy a piece of property with a beautiful lake, but there is not that much trees that you can use for your stove, you may have a lot of water, but doesn't mean you're going to have a lot of heat. So these are suggestions. We try to take about maybe 45 minutes for this session, and then we can discuss afterward if you have any question. But this is the area, for example, from where we are right now. Basically, this is the area that I believe is the best right now from where I live. And I love the highway here, which is Highway 400, because it goes north-south. I would avoid any of the big highway that goes east-west, The reason is, well, if I continue to the west, I end up in the USA. If I continue to the east, I end up, to another province. Where the north one here, especially in Ontario, the north one here, you can go quite far if you have to go, and you can drive and find some recluse area where it can become pretty safe when you need to be safe. It goes all the way. This particular highway is so big. It goes all the way to Lake Superior, which is right here. It's one of the Great Lake, really, really big. This one is Georgian Bay, but if I shrink it, you will see it goes all the way to Sudbury, Sault Ste. Marie, and yeah, this is Lake Huron. But if you go right here, Lake Superior, very big lake, and I have driven there a few times, and it's kind of wilderness. Once you get here, there's not too much living, but there is some nice places that if you don't want to stay too close to the city, that would be really, really good to go through. As far as going east-west, I am not attracted at all to buy a property that way. It would be more north, towards the north. All right, so this is the session for today. Preparation is the key, and this was the survival skill number 3. And today it was protection, self-defense was the theme, along with your starting your for the kit for emergency, and start thinking about kit for clothing. And the next session will have to do with food. Excellent session that is coming as well. So may the Lord bless you and cause his face to shine upon you and give you peace.